Hello everyone, my name is Bogdan and welcome back to another guide. In today's video, I'm going to be covering one of my favorite mid laners at the moment. She's very strong, bursty, and mobile. Not long ago, Taliyah was seen in the jungle as one of the strongest picks. However, she's not that strong in the jungle anymore, and I'm planning to play her mid lane. She's still a very good mid lane pick if you're looking for an interesting champion to play. Warning, the following character is not easy to play. Taliyah has 4 skill shots and 2 of them are crucial to land in order for you to deal any damage. However, if you manage to land them all, it could lead to some really nasty one-shots. So, without further ado, let's get straight to it. As always, let's start off with the pros and cons. Taliyah has very strong poke throughout the whole game, amazing kiting and catch-up potential to her big damage. She has very good roaming, which is really important to a mid laner, and she's not that mana hungry. All her abilities are AoE, which allows you for great clear and shoving. All in all, Taliyah is a very good roamer. Her whole kit is based around roaming, so be prepared to do that. Although she's a great champion, she does have some cons. As I mentioned earlier, Taliyah is pretty hard to play. She has 4 skill shots and her ultimate does not give her an extra power spike in lane. She makes up for it with her insane damage and mobility. Next, she has no gap closers or escapes. She has her R, but she's forced to jump off as soon as she takes any damage, and her passive is out of combat. Overall, her kit is hard to use and get used to, but at the end, it's really worth it. Speaking of her kit, let's talk about her abilities. So, Taliyah's passive is that she gets movement speed when walking around terrain. So movement speed is only out of combat, but it is pretty huge. So as you can see right now, in the middle of the river, I'm getting 380 movement speed. That's at level 18 with tier 2 boots. As soon as I get to a wall, my movement speed goes up to 506. So that is around 120 movement speed, and that is crazy. So this allows me to get from, for example, from lane to bot lane a lot quicker. So from here to this bush takes me about 6 seconds, right? However, on a wall, it's about maybe 3 seconds, maybe a little less. So use this when getting to lane, when getting to objectives, and when getting everywhere. Also, a little trick. When getting to lane, try to go, instead of walking in the middle of the lane, walk on the side, just so you get the basic movement speed. At level 1, you can get to 400 movement speed without boots, so use that to your advantage. Taliyah's Q is her basic poke ability and her harass. So, what it is that Taliyah fires 5 rocks in a direction, and it hits the first enemy hit. This works like a Lucian ultimate, so you cannot change the direction where the rocks go, but you can move. So see, I can move like that, but I can't change where the rocks go. Also, after using your Q, it leaves worked ground on the ground for around 45 seconds. So on worked ground, you can cast Q. It only throws 1 rock, but it only costs 1 mana. So in lane, you're gonna after trading for a while, you're gonna end up having a lot of worked ground, and this is fine. It just all it is that you cannot trade as effectively as you would before. But you can use this just to farm a lot better, because your Q does, with full build, 400 damage, and that can last hit minions a lot easier. Taliyah's W is her only reliable form of CC. So, Taliyah hurdles a rock in a direction. So, as you can see right now, I can change where the rock will hurdle the enemy. So, for example, if someone's running at me, I can throw them away, as well as throw them to me, just in case if I want to hit my E or combine it with my Q. That's really it to the ability. It's not that complicated, right? You just have to, get used to kind of maneuvering it. Also, the hitbox is really small, so you might have a hard time landing it, but be prepared that people can dodge it. So that's really it for this ability. Taliyah's E is her basic form of damage. It's the burst, right? So she puts down these rocks in a cone that do damage. They don't do that much damage. They also explode after a few seconds. But the good thing about them is that any type of dashes on them, such as a Yasuo E or Kha'Zix E or any sort of things like that, or Lucian E, it will proc the rocks and do massive damage. So The good thing is that Taliyah's W procs it. So as you can see, if you just use your E, it does 400 damage, right? 800 damage, not bad. If you use your W with your E, it does almost 2000 damage, right, with Electrocute. So this is really good for one-shotting people, especially that it is AoE, and if you have multiple people in one area, it still works, right? So I just did almost 1500 damage to each one of those, right? So that is why Taliyah is extremely rewarding, that's the word, right? So you can miss all your abilities, but when you hit them, it does a lot of damage. As I said earlier, Taliyah's ultimate is not something that helps you in combat in any way. It's one of those abilities, such as Rises, that is really good in teamfights and can really win one if placed properly. So what it is that Taliyah hurdles a wall in a direction that covers quite a big portion of the map, as you can see, right? Taliyah can also ride the wall if recast as soon as you, I guess, cast the wall. So if I cast it right now and I press R again, I can go on the wall and I can jump on either sides. If you get damaged by it, if you get damaged while on the wall or while casting, you will jump off. Keep in mind that you can jump on either sides. So this is really good when separating team fights. Say there's a person there, and and an AD carry is being caught out there, right? Easily, you cast an ultimate and separate the fight, so this champion gets caught out while these can do nothing about it. So this is really good when, as I said, when doing that or when ganking bot lane. The reason why is because you're guaranteed to close their paths, right? So if you close their paths like that, they can only either flash or use their, I don't know, some kind of dash or something like that, or maybe a thrust lantern. Other than that, it will be a successful gank. Keep in mind that if you dash into them like that, they will know you're going to be there and they might be able to burst you, so be careful of that. One more little thing for Taliyah's ultimate, you do get your passive procced on it, so if you don't want to ride it but you just still want to get to somewhere fast, just use it. Let's talk about some lane combos and some tips and tricks. So your basic combo would be W into E into Q. This procs Thunderlords or Electrocute, and it does crazy damage, right? So that is your basic combo, and it is, I'll admit, it is kind of hard to land, especially on a moving target, but it is really rewarding. Now, the second trick may be a little tricky to do, or maybe it will be extremely situational. But if you're chasing someone, try not to damage them or not to take damage until you can get closer to them with your passive. So because your passive is only, it's only out of combat, and it refreshes every 5 seconds, if you keep landing your Q on someone, it will keep refreshing your passive. So what you want to do is you want to get to them as fast as possible, and then only do your combo when you're ready to hit your E and W. When starting the game, I usually like to shove the first wave as hard as possible, just so you can get level 2 faster than the enemy and use your combo on them. So level 1, you usually want to take E, however you can take Q in some situations, right? So after you shove the first wave and you get level 2 faster, you can look to help your jungle contest Scuttle Crab. This is really important because Scuttle Crab is a big deal now in Season 9 that it has been buffed. So this is a really useful tip to know. Now, this tip is also kind of situational, but it will be used in almost every single laning phase. So working around playing with word ground can be really difficult, but you have to remember that if you want to cast 5 Qs, it's not that you have to be in the work ground, it's that you have to be outside of it. So even if I'm right here, I can still cast it, but move into my work ground and still have the 5 rocks. So it doesn't cancel, right? I can move into here and still have it. That way you can layer as much work ground on top of each other as possible. So for example, if you're both standing in lane, right, and I can't. If I want to hit them with all 5 of my rocks, I can't really do that. I would leave right here and start casting, about, I will start casting now. That way, I can hit them with 5 or 3 of my rocks, whichever, depending on how close they are. Alright, now that we're finished with almost all of the laning, let's go back to the setup a little bit and talk about the runes and the build. So, this is pretty much the only rune page there is for Taliyah. In my opinion, Electrocute is the best option because it's really easy to proc on her and it gives her a lot of extra burst, excuse me. So obviously Electrocute, neither of these are really good, um, just because they don't really synergize with Taliyah. For example, these ones, you could essentially take Taste of Blood, but that's only if you prefer it, really. I don't like Taste of Blood as much. You can take this into a really aggressive lane if the enemy's being aggressive and you need some defense. However, if you're planning to be aggressive, you want to take Cheap Shot, right? Synergizes with your W and with your Rylai's. Now, I don't really like Zombie Ward or Ghost Poro in any champion, so I like to take Eyeball Collection for the extra ability power. Now, Ravenous Hunter is really good because late game you're going to be doing a lot of damage and it will heal you for great chunks. And you're going to be able to kite and survive a lot. However, you could technically take Ultimate Hunter if you want to roam a lot, or Relentless Hunter, right? Mana Flow Band and Transcendence are really good for any mage, really, that uses mana, right? Mana Flow Band gives you more mana and mana regen, and Transcendence allows you to spam your Q, almost literally spam it. You're not gonna be able to run out of it, right? You can take instead of Transcendence Absolute Focus for the really good one shots if the enemy team has no tanks at all, right? But then if you're taking Absolute Focus, I suggest taking the cooldown reduction industry, right? Obviously, health, armor, and magic resist are based on your matchup. Another rune page you can take is also Domination First with Electrocute, but you can try Inspiration. So for example, if you're going up against someone that you know you're going to build Zonya's second item, for example, like if they have a Talon and a Zed, you might, and a Pike for example, you might want to take a Perfect Timing so you have that extra 600 gold for that stopwatch, right? Or I like Minion Dematerializer. If you're going up against someone with poor wave clear, like a Kali, you can really hardcore outpush her and then roam with Magical Footwear. So I suggest taking Magical Footwear and Minion Dematerializer. However, you can experiment with maybe even Futures Market for the extra power spike. I don't know, but I like Sorcery. So, now that we're done talking about the runes, let's talk about the build. So, build for Taliyah is quite simple, honestly, for like any mage. You're gonna want to start with Doran's Ring and 2 health pots. You can start with Corrupting Potion if you really like, but I really don't prefer it. This is just a lot better for mana sustain and last hitting minions. First item to back for Lost Chapter. It's really good for mages because it allows them to push wave and save a lot of mana, and it gives you a little bit of ability power, and it builds into your Luden's Echo, which is your first item. So on your first major back, you want to have a Luden's Echo and Boots, right? Boots are really your choice, but I really, really strongly recommend Sorcerer's Boots. It's just more damage, as you're a mage, you do need to do a lot of damage, right? So your second item should be either Rylai's Crystal Scepter, Marlnomicon, or Zonya's. It really depends on the team. If you're gonna have to kite a lot, Rylai's. If they have a lot of damage, like burst damage, Zonya's. If they have a lot of healing, you take Marlnomicon. Third item, not counting boots, you should go for Leandries or a Death Cap, right? So Leandries, obviously, if they have a lot of health. Death Cap is if you're trying to burst really hard. So if you're trying to go for the carry one-shots, I suggest going Death Cap. So these are your situational items, right? And this is the final build. I know there's 7 items here, but I just wanted to say that you can replace Zonya's for Leandries. Right, it depends on which situation it is. If they have a lot of tanks, you're probably not going to need a Zonya's. You just need the Kite with Rylai's, as well as the percent max health as damage, right? But if they have a lot of assassins like mid lane Pike, top lane, or support Pike, mid lane Zed, and top lane Talon, you might want to get a Zonya's, because they're going to want to go for you. So that's it for the build. Let's move on to the next step. So the last thing I want to talk about is the summoner spells. So Flash and barrier are almost 100% you're gonna want to take them. Flash 100% you cannot not take flash. It's really important for gap closers and for escapes, right? Um, Barrier is my I think I take barrier 90% of the time unless I'm into a matchup that I know I'm gonna win, like Twisted Fate or maybe Aurelion Soul or someone like that. Someone extremely not aggressive and that they cannot burst you or they cannot execute you, right? So if you're going up against someone like a Syndra, a Zed, a Talon, or a Lux, you want to take barrier. It's just Taliyah has enough damage on her own that you really don't need ignite, right? Um, yeah, well that's really it. As I said, barrier, flash, or barrier ignite are your two only options.